you voted for Trump, a poem by Marina, shut up! So this shit isn't even sure if it's a fucking poem. It's gotta ask me if it's a poem. Well, let's see.
If you voted for Trump, and I know this isn't an insignificant percentage, about half of you voted for a man who says that it's okay to grab women by the pussy.
Okay, I'm calling it early for not a poem. And did Trump say it was okay to grab women by the pussy? I seem to recall that he said that that's what he does. And it was clearly him bragging about how famous and rich and therefore sexually desirable he is. He was boasting, I'm famous and I'm rich so I can go around grabbing pussies and no one will stop me because they want me because I'm so fucking awesome. That's what he was saying. He's saying that he can go around grabbing women by their pussies and they won't do anything to stop him. Because they want it. They want it. Now, this is just delusional. Because I can tell you right now, a lot of women are fucking disgusted by Trump's very existence. And maybe this mentality isn't exactly what you want in a president. I'll grant you that. But he certainly never said it was all right for men in general to just go around grabbing pussies wantonly wherever they see them. If he had, I'd have voted for him. But, maybe I'm making too subtle of a distinction here for your liking, but I'm one nuance-loving motherfucker. What can I say, baby?
And I get it. You wanted to change. Well, you got one. My friends and my family, people I know, people I don't know, are terrified. Women, people of color, Muslims, immigrants, disabled people, gay people, bi people, trans people, people who are branded as different. We are scared for our lives.
Well, I am bisexual and you don't speak for me. I frankly find it annoying and unwanted that you attempt to speak for me. I am no more afraid of Trump than I am of caterpillars or wheatgrass or a pair of novelty moose antlers. He's the president, so of course he could do things that negatively impact people's lives, but the same can be said of any leader. But this idea that LGBT people in particular should be scared of Trump is, to me, a fucking silly idea. What other Republican president would hold up the rainbow flag and warmly accept the support of gay and trans people? What other Republican president would stand before the RNC and say in no uncertain terms that he stands with LGBT people?
Only weeks ago, in Orlando, Florida, 49 wonderful Americans were savagely murdered by an Islamic terrorist. This time, the terrorist targeted LGBTQ community. No good. And we're going to stop it.
The reality that you and your moronic ilk seem to be ignoring is that Trump is way more progressive on LGBT issues than any Republican president who has come before him in all of history. And we should rejoice that he's pulling his party to the left on LGBT issues, at the very least in terms of rhetoric. The fact is that Donald Trump will be the first president to take office whilst unopposed to gay marriage. As far as gay rights go, Trump is about as good as Republicans get. You should be thankful you were spared from President fucking Cruz. And as for the rest of the people on your list, I see no reason for any of them to fear Trump either. If you're an illegal immigrant, then sure, be afraid of Trump. He might deport you. He might imprison you. But if you're a Hispanic person who's lived in this country for generations, odds are you agree with Trump on immigration. Polling suggests that 58% of Latinos support Trump's views on immigration because guess what? They don't like people who can't speak English and work for peanuts coming over to this country and giving a bad name to Hispanics whose families have lived here for generations. This is something a lot of liberals don't get about the Latino community. They're not ravenously pro-immigration. Many of them hate illegal immigrants with the same fervor as white rednecks. Now, Trump has also made tons of appeals to Black America. Go to Donald Trump's website and read his New Deal for Black America. You might not agree with his solutions to the problems facing Black America, but if Trump was truly a racist who's just trying to appeal to other racists, why even have a plan for helping Black America? Now, I'll summarize Trump's plan for you, since I know you won't actually educate yourself about it. Now, these are just Trump's stated positions. Who knows what he really believes? But this is the plan he's put forth. He wants school choice, which is a pretty standard Republican position. He wants increased policing in the inner cities, which might be something that Black community opposes. But with crime being rampant in Black communities, it's obviously necessary, in my opinion. He wants to address inequalities in the justice system. Here he is, a fucking Republican, admitting that there's still racial bias in our courts, and he wants to stop it. That's almost unprecedented for a Republican, and certainly not the position of a fucking racist. The rest of his plan is stuff like giving tax cuts to small businesses, making it easier for people to get credit, which I think is a terrible idea, by the way. Infrastructure investments in the inner cities, which should actually be number one on his list, if you ask me. Like Trump himself, his plan is a hybrid of liberal and conservative policies. And while I think that his overall plan kind of sucks, it is at least a plan. So I don't see Trump as being racist against Black people to even the slightest degree. And as for Muslims, the only thing Trump has talked about in relation to Islam is that we should restrict travel from countries with strong ties to terrorism. There's been some antagonism towards Islam in general from Trump, I guess. So maybe Muslims should be a little concerned, but that's not a racist policy. It's a xenophobic policy stemming from religious fears that even many liberals have to admit are at least somewhat justified. Myself as a liberal will admit that, so will Bill Maher, so will Kyle Kalinske of my favorite YouTube channel, Secular Talk. There is a causal relationship between Islam and violence, and an even stronger causal relationship between Islam and illiberalism. I never understand why feminists like you are so eager to defend a religion that by and large has very archaic and sexist attitudes towards women. However, I should say here that I think Trump is actually a bit too Islamophobic, too governed by fear. I think Trump should remember the First Amendment guarantees us the right to practice any religion we see fit, or no religion at all. The issue is complex, and as H.L. Mencken said, there is always a well-known solution to every human problem. Neat, plausible, and wrong. That's how I view Trump's approach to Islam. It's neat, it's plausible, and it's wrong. If you want to know more about how I view the issue, check out my video response to the Orlando massacre, where I lay out my own positions in great detail. And I want to say I'm not a big Trump fan. In fact, I think he's completely wrong on a huge number of issues. But I'm tired of this character assassination coming from the left that does nothing other than dilute the waters to the point where legitimate criticisms of Trump are ignored because there are so many illegitimate criticisms of Trump floating around the media and pop culture. It's like we can't talk about his bad policy positions because everyone's obsessed with caricaturing the motherfucker as a racist or a sexist or an idiot or whatever.
Series of checks and balances will utterly fail. As president, when marginalized people say that we are afraid of a looming reality that we already see unfolding.
You know, we've seen far more violence coming from the left than coming against the left. And I say this as someone who is left himself on most issues. Hell, I'm not even really anti-violence, honestly. I'm all for the occasional Molotov cocktail after a hard day of smoking weed and watching Rick and Morty, but don't lie. Don't act like it's the Trump supporters who are smashing windows and setting things on fire. Don't act like it's the Trump supporters blocking traffic and screaming idiotic chants at the top of their lungs. I mean, what reason would they even have to do that? They're the ones who got their fucking way!
A fire has been quietly kindling in homes across the nation, hidden behind closed doors and screens, on the tip of white America's tongue, and quickly swallowed, to keep up the guise of equality. Equality is a fairy tale you tell your children at night, before you build walls in your sleep to keep out anyone who doesn't look like you. The wildfire is spreading. It burns in the hearts of Klansmen publicly celebrating this new America. Or is it just a slightly repackaged version of old America? I really can't tell anymore.
Apparently I'll be citing these statistics until the end of time, The reason Trump won had really very little to do with a big grassroots revolution. If Trump had dominated Clinton with a sheer overwhelming amount of votes, then you'd have the beginnings of a point. But Trump didn't do any better in terms of vote count than Romney or McCain. Trump got the standard level of support that the previous two Republicans who ran before him got. The difference is that Hillary Clinton drastically underperformed when compared to Barack Obama, which I'm sure you think was due to her being a woman. It's nothing to do with her lack of vision, her lack of charisma, her ties to Wall Street, her support of TPP, her decades of scandals. No. It all boils down to she's got a cunt. If she had a cock, she'd be president. Whatever. If she had a cock, you wouldn't feel the need to defend her, even knowing she's a shitty fucking candidate. Hillary Clinton ran a campaign based on the same sort of PC outrage and indignation on display in your video, and America correctly rejected that. The flip side to that is that Trump didn't win because he's a racist or a bigot or a sexist. He won because he did have a vision. He did have charisma. He did have anti-establishment credentials. He opposed TPP. And about 90% of his scandals felt like it was just the mainstream media trying to force offendedness down our fucking throats. And the 10% of Trump scandals that actually had weight to them were actually ignored entirely, or else they were lost in the din of PC knee-jerk outrage. In other words, your whiny feminist bullshit was the red carpet Trump took his victory lap on, and you've learned nothing from this. You haven't even had a single solitary moment of self-reflection in the wake of what's happened. And that, to me, is truly fucking sad.
More white men and women voted in this election for Trump than they have for other Republicans in either of the past two elections. It's like you were waiting for a match to strike against us and burn us to the ground. Or maybe you were just waiting for someone else to hold the match.
Yeah, that's the real powerful stuff right there. Very profound. How is it even arguable that this is a poem? Nothing about this is the least bit poetic, except, of course, for the poetic irony that you continue to push the very same narrative that Hillary Clinton ineffectually used in her failed bid to beat Trump. PC outrage and girl power didn't stop candidate Trump, so what makes you fucking think it's gonna stop President Trump, you retard? Tisk, tisk, motherfucking tisk. I'm the Amazing Atheist. Peace the fuck out. Subscribe to my channel.